and very soon you'll be surrounded by eels. Okay. So, what we are feeding our eels today is leftover kiwi and shore plover food. Nothing goes to waste here at Mount Bruce. We try and reuse everything we possibly can. And so this is the food that was put out yesterday for all of our birds, and they can feel us seafood. And so instead of just throwing it out, we're feeding it to our lovely eels. Which naturally in the wild, these eels will eat anything found on the bottom of the river system. So they eat slugs and snails and dead rotting carcasses and anything delicious like that. These are our long-finned eels. We've been feeding them here at Mount Bruce for over 40 years, so that's why at 1 o'clock they don't show up. And in a couple minutes time, as the food and this delicious smell of this food drifts down the river system, there'll be more and more eels showing up. But this is a free-flowing system. We do not have any fences on our river. These eels are free to come and go as they please, but they tend to stick around because they know there's free, easy food every day. Now, the longfin eel is an endemic species here in New Zealand. They're only found here in New Zealand, except for when they migrate to breed. And so what happens is the eels will spend most of their lifetime living in this river system, and somewhere between the ages of 35 and 110. Somewhere in there, something clicks, and they know it's time for them to breed. And so they'll leave our river systems, swim out towards the ocean, and then they undergo this metamorphosis, where the nose becomes really long and pointed, and their eyes become 3 times the size. And then they swim for 3 months, non-stop, no eating, no resting. 3 months to swim to off the coast of Tonga. There's a very deep trench there, where these guys breed. And this trench is so deep that our current scientific equipment can't actually go down there. So we haven't actually seen these guys breed. We know the gist of it. We know a female eel can lay between 1 million and 20 million eggs. And then she lays the eggs into the ocean, or on the bottom of this trench. And then the males will fertilize the eggs. And after that, both male and female die. And so it's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to breed. And so they definitely try and make it count by having so many millions and millions of eggs. And those eggs are then at the whimsy of the ocean current. So a lot of them get eaten off by other small predators, really tiny little eggs. But eventually, some of those eggs make it back up here to New Zealand. Oh, someone will love that mouse. Watch it. Oh, come on. Oh, come on, Steven. Someone will find it. But, so the eggs are floating at the whimsy of the ocean current. They make their way back here to New Zealand. The ducks go check out the mouse. It's okay, the mouse can float around, they'll find it eventually. And when they come here to reach New Zealand again, the eggs will hatch into what we call these little silver eels, or glass eels. These super tiny, transparent eels that will live in the brackish waters of the estuaries for at least 10 years growing in size. Because when they're still little tiny, there's lots of things that can eat them. So they're going to hide in those brackish waters where it's not so easy to see, and there's lots of vegetation to hide in. Until they're bigger and
there's trout everywhere.
Yeah.
I see my lens cover cap from my camera I dropped yesterday.
Oh, is that yours?
Yep.
You could try and rescue it with a spoon. I wouldn't put my hands in there. It's fine with a spoon. They're very gentle. As you see, they're all kind of just mingling around trying to eat off the spoon. They're not shoving each other or attacking each other. But they do have teeth. They are quite sharp and they are pointing backwards. Okay, go. These guys are being levitated too. There they go. They slurp up the food off the spoon. But in the eel world, if it's smaller than it, if something's smaller than an eel, they can eat it. And so that's why you see a lot of our eels are very big eels here, because if a small eel was to join them, he'd easily get eaten up by these guys. As well, we believe that the majority of our eels here at Mount Bruce are females. And that's because female eels get to about 2 meters in length, where males only get to be about 75 centimeters. So it's a substantial difference between male and female. And we don't actually know how old our eels are here. We know we've been feeding them in the river for 40 years. But the only way to actually age an eel is to look at this tiny little bone in its ear called the otolith. And the only way to get that is, unfortunately, to kill the eel and cap off its head. So we don't want to do that. We like our eels. We like them in the river. They're beautiful animals. So we're not going to do that. So we just guess that they're eels. But unfortunately, eel numbers are in decline around New Zealand and around the world. Specifically, our longfin eel, which we have here, is the threatened species. Not threatened yet, but sorry. Its numbers are drastically in decline, and this is majorly to do with the fishing industry. Pollution has its effects, global warming has its effects, but the fishing industry is the #1 threat to our eel species here. And that's because around the New Zealand waters, the federal government allows for up to 48,000 tons of eels to be harvested each year. And if you think about it, all those eels that are in the ocean that they're catching are all of our breeding adults who are trying to migrate to produce the next generation of eels. And so they just keep cutting and cutting and cutting our eel population, unfortunately, by catching all these mature breeding adults. And so because of that, our eel numbers are so drastically in decline, they are more at risk at becoming extinct than our kiwis, than our saddleback, than our hee-hees, than any other species here in New Zealand. Now there might be more of them number-wise, but their numbers are dropping so fast that they're more at risk of becoming extinct than any other species here in New Zealand, which is quite unfortunate. I do have a friend by the name of Martin who's been fighting with the courts for years, trying to push through this policy not to cut off fishing entirely for the eels, just to reduce the number of eels that are captured every year. But unfortunately, that piece of paper keeps getting caught in politics, loopholes, and shenanigans, and it just hasn't happened, unfortunately. It's been at least 5 years we've been fighting for this. Which is quite sad. Because they are beautiful creatures. You see, they're very gentle. As well, I saw him, our volunteer, what's your name, by the way? I should ask.
Chris.
Chris?
Think you got the mouse
Chris.
yet?
Chris was trying to pet them, and you
Think
can't
you got
make
the
sure
mouse?
you're not near anyone else's head. But when you pet an eel in the water, a lot of people think they're slimy and disgusting, but they're actually really smooth. It's like petting wet silk. They're really, really soft. But a lot of people think they're slimy because a lot of people will actually fish the eels, and when they pull them out of the water, the eel freaks out and actually can excrete this mucus so that its skin is covered in this moist membrane. And so that's why a lot of people think they're slimy. That's just a defensive property in order to try to escape predators. As well, what's really cool, with that mucus, if the river system ever dries up because it's been a really bad drought one summer and there's no water source coming down, these eels can actually slime their way out of the river across 2 kilometers of forest or fields to find another home, another waterway. So that's a really cool adaptation that these guys have. That's not mentioned. As well, longfin eels are the only species of eel in the world that can swim backwards, which is kind of cool. You don't see any other eels doing that. I think it's time for a rescue mission for the lens. You can do it! Yeah! Awesome! I'm glad you got it back.